SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Whether you're looking to start a career with no student loans or change careers to land one of the happiest jobs in the world, yep, that's construction, Build Mississippi can help. Visit buildmississippi.com to learn why a career in the trades deserves another look. Buildmississippi.com. Your future is waiting.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C Spire. Power your home or business with C Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C Spire. C Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday, y'all.
Looks like there's a little precipitation headed our way already, draped across the northern third of the state. It's just been kind of a stubborn weather system that's just hanging around here over the Magnolia State. What's the latest? Is that what you're seeing? I mean, no severe weather.
Yeah, nothing predicted to be tornadic at this point. There is a chance for some strong winds, potentially even some hail, but I haven't seen anything as far as severe thunderstorms with damaging tornadoes or anything like that.
Okay.
But yeah, it is a gnarly little storm just meandering its way across the Magnolia State today. And
at a very slow pace as well, right? It's just kind of firing up and then dissipating and then firing up some more, but not really moving a great deal from west to east. Well, the president says that talks are underway with China and that they're close to a trade deal with Japan, though certainly the info coming out of the communist regime in China is that fake news, we're not talking. I hope we're close to a deal because the markets are on edge. The entire economy is, honestly. And I think once we see one executed, pen to paper, as the saying goes, that will change the landscape of the nation's economy. Certainly the markets will receive that as extremely good news. They're still waiting to see the one big beautiful bill. So I've caught some interviews on the business channels over the last 24 hours with members of the United States Congress discussing that, and in particular members over there in the House. And they're kind of indicating a July 4th date. So they're pushing it back, but others are saying, no, we got to get it done quicker than that. So I'm not sure what to expect. And it's, again, a little bit of uncertainty. Sure would like to see Speaker of the House Mike Johnson provide some guidance and information as to what he expects from a timing perspective. Now, something that's being talked about that the president describes as a good idea, and that's a $5,000 baby bonus to juice up the birth rate. I don't think I'm a fan of this, honestly. This is pure and simple welfare. Geez, I thought this is largely believed to be how we ended up with a bunch of children being born into less than optimum circumstances that's driven up the roles of welfare in this country. And the purpose behind this, the goal, again, is to increase the birth rate. There's no doubt that the birth rate has declined rather substantially. Latest reports indicate that around 40% of those Americans within the childbearing age intend to have children. That's down from 2018, it was well over 60%. Down more than a third. That's a concern. It's a concern globally. Elon Musk actually has been warning. He's been sounding the alarm on this for a while. He's actually said we're at risk of humans going extinct. He's taking it to that extreme, but even in the short term, his concern is we're not going to have any workers. Big concern about that. Well, I don't know that $5,000. It just feels like lots of bad stuff could happen with that. And then the other concern is, well, wow, if we're just going to pay people $5,000, and the idea is you need money to help with the cost of raising a child, and maybe this kind of provides some financial aid along those lines, and you'd be more inclined to reproduce. I mean, that theoretically makes sense, but I don't know how we could control how they spend their money. I mean, what guarantees do we have that goes to the expenses associated with taking care of a newborn baby?
I don't think you could really put many guarantees on the money, especially if it's just sent versus like a SNAP card or something.
Yeah.
Where you can put limitations on where it can be spent. It seems like you would have to put preconditions on receiving the money.
Yeah.
And I've seen a variety of suggestions for that, which would make it slightly more palatable, where if you mandated that the parents had to be married or at least living together for a prescribed period of time before the pregnancy.
Well, think about this, though. If you were told, hey, look, if you go have a baby, we'll give you $5,000 in debit cards, if you will, that could be used for a list of those items needed to care for a newborn, I'm not sure that moves the needle. I don't think people that have made the decision not to reproduce and say, oh, okay, well, that makes a difference, because I don't think that's the reason they're not having babies. And if you watch any of the polls and any of the folks that are questioned as to that, they generally don't say that's the reason. It's usually something else. In fact, here's a problem we have in this country. And some people may get a bit upset of what I'm about to say. I don't care. Is that the people who least can afford to have a baby, they're the ones having the babies. Right? And they're just dumping those on society. That's been going on for 60 years. And it's just been exacerbated. It's been exacerbated because a lot of the people, young people that are of childbearing age, young professionals, for example, that have great jobs and good incomes that can afford it, have just chosen not to. There's a lot of truth to that. They just don't want the intrusion that a baby makes in one's lifestyle. Because take it from somebody who's raised a kid, or a couple of them, you sacrifice a lot. There's no secret to that. But, gosh, the joys of parenting and being a parent and having children are second to none. But you got a lot of people saying, I like my freedom. I like my free time. And you see many of them say, well, I've observed what those in my age group, what their lifestyles are like, carting the kids around. I don't want that. You've seen that too. In Australia, in 2004, they introduced a $3,000 bonus. So this is not a new idea to parents for each birth. They eventually hiked that to $5,000, Australian $5,000. And really hadn't had any success with that. Their birth rate has continued to decline from about 2 children on average for each woman to about 1.5 in 2023, despite the monetary incentive to reproduce. That's actually below our rate. I think ours is 1.7 now, if I'm not mistaken. And so Elon Musk does the math and say, okay, look, we got attrition. We got people dying, of course. We're reproducing to take their place. And the death rate's starting to exceed the birth rate. And that's a toxic formula. And that's why he says, yeah, if something doesn't turn around, we're going to run out of people. Interesting. Again, and then you got the left who said, well, don't bring a child into the world because of climate change, right? That was Kamala's
they
explanation.
Say that on one side, and on the other side, they're drawing a connection between Trump's proposed $5,000 to have a baby to the Hitler gold mother medals, whatever they gave to the mothers of Germany that had multiple children to support the war effort.
That's a good point, yeah. Of course they are. We should not be surprised by that.
The left.
whatsoever.
Give me all your welfare. That's bad welfare. Hitler welfare. Give me all your welfare. Hitler. That's the left for you. 2025 on the left. That's why they have like a 22% approval rating.
The as you like to say, if it weren't for double standards, they would have none. There's absolutely no question about that. We got more judges taking more action, striking down the Trump agenda. We'll get to that on the other side of the break. It's Christopher Green, law professor at Ole Miss at 10:35. Caleb Sailors with SuperTalk Mississippi News joins Middays at 11:20. We are in the Element Wealth studio, coming right back.
Be sure.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert
Let's get on with it.
on Super Talk Mississippi.
There she stood in the street, smiling from her head to her feet. I said, what is this now, baby? Maybe she's in need of a kiss. I said, hey, what's your name, baby? Maybe we can see things the same. Now don't you hesitate. Let's move before they raise the parking rate.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are live in the Element Wealth studio. So, like we were saying, Rhino, another day, another judge acting as an activist lawmaker. There's no end to it. This time it's U.S. District Judge Colleen Kohler-Cotley. I don't know if I pronounced that right or not. It doesn't really matter. Cotley. So she issued an order yesterday that the Election Assistance Commission must stop taking action to require a passport or other proof of citizenship for voter registration. Now, bear in mind, the federal government only has purview over federal elections under current law. Now, the Democrats, of course, oh boy, are they ever hot for their old HB1. That was during the first 2 years of the Biden term. First 2 years, they styled a measure as HB1, meaning it's their top priority. And it was to federalize all elections. They wanted the federal government to essentially have complete authority and control over all elections in this country, essentially rendering secretaries of state who are charged with the oversight of elections in their respective states, and then down at the local level where it's actually executed, they wanted to eliminate all that. Nope. Bureaucrats from Washington are going to take care of that for you. And this judge comes out and says, you cannot require a person to validate that they are an American citizen to qualify to register to vote in a U.S. election. Total insanity when you think about it. And it's so disgusting to see these judges act this way. Like, why in the world do you have a problem? Don't answer that. But why do you have a problem with ensuring that only American citizens cast ballots and votes for federal offices? The Democrats really have zero concern or interest in asserting our sovereignty. I think that's the way to put it. In fact, they completely support, you could say, tearing down of our sovereignty, just ceding it. It's crazy. So that goes on. And then this morning...
What do you think deconstruction means?
Well, that's a good point. And anytime I see that, I just shudder because I know it's bad news behind whatever it is they're deconstructing.
Decolonializing.
That's right. Decolonization. We can't have any of that colonization thing going on. My gosh. So now we got yesterday as well 3 federal judges. They issued rulings blocking the Trump administration's effort to shut down diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in schools, delivering another blow to one of the president's promises during the campaign. 2 of the judges were Trump appointees, one an Obama appointee. And I guess my take on that is I share concerns that we're doing too much governing via executive fiat. And it's like this freight train headed downhill that we don't seem to be able to stop in reverse. This sort of stuff, I agree, is better handled by the United States Congress and signed into law by the president.
There's just one problem.
What's that?
Congress appears to have been out to lunch for the vast majority of the last, 4.5 decades.
Which is essentially the reason why, as we've said so many times on the program, our lives have been far more impacted, I believe, by the bureaucrats in these 428 agencies that are part of the executive branch. They have more impact on us than the Congress does. Now, the Congress may start with a law, but as we've seen, once it gets its way down for implementation and execution down at the agency level, I mean, it becomes a fish and tail, right? It goes from a minnow to a whale in a heartbeat. And the Supreme Court's had to step in and say, no, you're out of line here. But you can't always be guaranteed. That's the ruling of the Supreme Court. But here we go. Judge McCafferty said the bill went beyond the goal of stopping illegal discrimination in schools. Man, DEI is inherently discriminatory, is it not? I mean, that's exactly what it is. No, we're giving preferential treatment to that person because of their physical attributes or sexual orientation or even viewpoints. You've seen that as well. Certainly within the agency complex, we've seen that. And what's scary is we now know, is that the vast majority of these career bureaucrats, faceless bureaucrats that hand down all these rules that run our lives, are all Democrats, anti-Trump Democrats to boot. So here's the deal, Congress, pass laws. Then this is unquestionable. You pass laws, these federal judges, they can make stupid rulings, but when it's in law, you got a lot better case when you end up in the Supreme Court.
Well, it feels like there's a rather wide swath of America that either was asleep during civics or they just didn't take the notes on the co-equal branches of government. that allow for the checks and balances. It's not that the Supreme Court is the end-all, be-all arbiter. It's not that Congress is the end-all, be-all arbiter. It's not that the executive branch is the end-all, be-all. It's co-equal. 2 against 1 can override the 1.
That's absolutely right.
It's the way it's supposed to kind of work, in theory.
And when you think about it, it was pretty brilliant, right? That system, it's almost as if those founders, as you like to say, had a clue what they were doing so long ago. And if I'm not mistaken, much of that was derived from the Magna Carta, which came way before that. A lot of it was. They'll tell you, and if you read the papers, it was somewhat of a basis.
It's foundational.
Yeah. But think about when the Magna Carta was drafted. That's pretty revolutionary. We learned from our mistakes between the Magna Carta, right, and the time our Constitution was drafted. Like, well, everything that was missing in the Magna Carta, to your point of it being foundational, we're going to now sort of fix, right? I mean, that really was the case. But think about...
And even then, they had to add the Bill of Rights.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. But think about how brilliant that was, but more importantly, how it stood the test of time. It still all applies validly today, except these judges don't see it that way. It's crazy that we're having this, to have this conversation. Why are you fools implementing this DEI stuff in schools? That's what's crazy. And you got a Supreme Court case, as you guys know about right now, that was filed from some plaintiffs in the state of Maryland, one of the first states, one of the original colonies, right there in the center, in the shadow of the center of power. And you got parents in one of those crazy left-wing school districts that are objecting to the requirement that their children be subjected to this radical gender ideology nonsense. I mean, they're foisting it on them. And they're objecting to it. The Supreme Court's hearing, but you've seen it, Rhino. It looks like they're going to come down, all indications are, in favor of the parents in this particular case. Why are we teaching this garbage to young kids? I mean, I know I say this over and over again and I sound like a broken record, but every time I see more examples of it, I just got to point out, what is the deal?
Because the people that need to be, quote-unquote, seen are damaged and deranged people. Let's just get down to brass tacks.
And so they see they see children, sadly, as their little pawns in their little experiment. They really do. I feel better.
With the least amount of pushback.
That's exactly right. Because children they're just not going to do that to adults. And we don't want them to, but adults have a responsibility not to abuse that privilege. Christopher Green, law professor at Ole Miss, is coming up next.
From the Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays. We're coming at you live from the Element Wealth Studio. It's our pleasure to welcome now Professor Christopher Green. He's up there at the Ole Miss Law School. Professor, always good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
We've been talking this morning in the first couple of segments about these judges in various areas of the country that just seem to be striking down the president's orders via executive order, and I guess it's a complex legal issue. Is it not, Professor, as to what authority the executive branch actually has to list out these policies and issue those policies, such as the one we've been talking about this morning? It just happened yesterday, the DEI policy, ending DEI in schools, and the Trump administration says you're going to do that, And this judge, I guess 3 judges, right, in this particular court, come out. 2 said, you can't do that, Mr. President. 1 said that they were okay with it. And what I got from it, what I gleaned from the reports, Professor, and get you to comment on it, is that the judges said, well, this really goes beyond the goals, the purpose of this policy.
Yeah. So the thing is, the federal government just gives absurdly large amounts of money to the higher ed system. So Ole Miss, Mississippi State, I think at one point they might still be the 2 single entities that get the most money from the federal government.
Wow.
So thank you, Senator Cochran and Senator Heisman.
You mean within our state? Within our state, Professor?
I think nationwide at one point under Cochran, just like he appropriated, sent stuff. Well, some of those have been canceled, but the thing is, there's this massive flow of money. And traditionally, there's been the feds have sort of, been more or less laissez-faire, but you have these statutes that give them authority. In theory, if you're not spending the money for what you're supposed to be spending the money on, you can cut it off. The Supreme Court really since the 80s. So we had a case about Libby Dole using federal highway funds to coerce states or pressure states, buy states, pay states to raise their drinking age. And the Supreme Court said, well, that's germane to the highway funds stuff. So you have this kind of vague sense of germaneness of funding cutoffs. And so in 2012, actually, the NFIB versus Sebelius, the big Medicaid case, they said requiring states to go back to no Medicaid at all is not actually germane to the purposes of the Medicaid situation to provide medical care. So that doctrine is basically what's going on in the background of a lot of these cases. They say they have all this Department of Education money. What is that money for? Well, a lot of it was done in 1964, implementing Brown versus Board of Education. We say, hey, if you don't play ball with Brown, you don't get this money. And then we have this question: well, what is going on with these DEI things? The words diversity, equity, inclusion. Well, you might say, well, that's just enforcing the 14th Amendment. Of course, in practice, there's massive disagreement about what that means. You look at some universities that are only kind of sort of complying with the SFFA case. So you get these executive decisions say, we're just gonna have a meat axe here. But there are some arguments that, hey, a meat axe approach is not good enough. You've got to be more tightly tied to the purposes of the statute. But I mean, as with huge numbers of these things, dang it, Congress has got to clarify this. And if they would just put in, you can have federal funding cutoffs for X, Y, and Z, and we're going to have a procedure within the executive branch, and here's exactly why you can do it. They do this in lots of statutes. Procedures for immigration law have all these the word they always use is reticulated. I mean, just incredibly complicated. And they could come up with some sort of system for these funding cutoffs so the executive decisions weren't so erratic. But again, Congress hasn't done their job. And broadly, I mean, how long have they not been doing their job? I mean, it's about 100 years. It was before the New Deal. We started getting these massive delegations from Congress. It's like, solve the problems, executive branch. And then it got really big uptick in the 30s. The 50s, really, a lot of these policies start getting having a massive federal control over stuff when we just start subsidizing the heck out of everything. Because this is the 1950s. We think we're America. We're going to be the most prosperous nation in the history of mankind for the rest of the history of mankind. Yeah. And they think we can just fund all this stuff, and we still are the most prosperous nation. But all these massive subsidizations of higher ed, that's one of the big things, but lots of areas started in the 50s, and thinking like, okay, how are we going to, unwind some of this, be more responsible, not subsidize stuff in ways that, really cause just the amount of federal power, the amount of executive federal power is way, way more than is healthy for a republic. And that's fundamentally what's going on. So I think these judges hitting back, are, the probably, a somewhat irregular approach to a somewhat irregular tweak on a somewhat irregular system. So there's just a whole lot of this is not how it's supposed to be. I keep coming back to Federalist One. Are we really a people capable of government by reflection and choice? We're just not people who reflect enough before we make decisions. That's what the legislative body is supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be saying, okay, we think of the pros and cons. You have to make some kind of compromise, get something that everybody can live with. But instead of doing that, they just say, oh no, executive, you do it. And then we have these huge stakes rolls of the dice every 4 years. And it's swinging back and forth in a way that is not good for the long-term health of the republic, or even the short-term health of the republic.
So two observations. The first is this test of germaneness. I mean, could there be anything more subjective than that? The test of germaneness. But I know that's what judges' responsibilities are, is to sort through all that and make some determination in their infinite wisdom, I guess. And then the other thing I think that's driven these executive orders, Professor, is something like this. You got to have 60 votes in the Senate. You unless you can figure out some way to insert it in a budget bill, which then that has to survive the test of the Senate parliamentarian. And I think that's why we've seen this rise in executive orders and feel like that we're just being governed by executive order.
Yeah, so if we could come up with a way to kind of get some of the good government-ish stuff where there's really a lot of consensus, maybe not 60 votes on the particulars, but like kind of a 60 vote threshold that we got to do something that's legislative, that actually is baked into a statute, and somehow increase the number of things that get handled with just a 50 vote threshold beyond the emergency budgetary stuff, because we're doing a lot of the executive stuff on the theory that it's an emergency. It's not really an emergency. And we're doing a lot of the legislative stuff. Well, we kind of put it in the budget thing. It's an emergency. Well, it's an emergency of your own. Your own incompetence is not an emergency. It's if I could pick all the people in Congress, or a lot of individual Congress people, I wish the institution worked differently. Yeah. So you have a collective action situation, but it requires some really, really skilled people. Mitch McConnell in his prime was better at it than a lot of people, but they're just it's hurting. I mean, Trent Lott always said it's like getting these 100 people to do anything. It's like herding cats. And I've been a cat owner for a few years now. And it is even just one cat is tough. But basically, getting them to say, look, what's good for the country is really more important than, being able to run ads back home and whip up your base and, maybe get a 1 in 1,000 chance of you being president someday. Yeah. That's more important in the Senate than what you're doing. So it's a difficult dynamic, but I think rereading the Federalist Papers is great. Federalist 51 about ambition, counteracting ambition. I wish Congress were more ambitious about being more zealous for its prerogative, saying, no, we get to make these rules, not these bureaucrats, not even the president. And part of the thing is, a lot of people in Congress, they agree with the substance of a lot of these rules. They're like, well, we don't want to smack these down, but they gotta bake in some part of it into a statute if it's going to have any lasting effect, and be independent of whether it has lasting effect. It's just, it makes it so unstable in general. So either rule, if you baked it in a statute, would be better than whipping back and forth. Makes sense. In the investment community, that. I mean, you can't make investments if you don't know what the rule is going to be. No doubt. 5 years from now.
So we got a break right here, but on the other side of it, I want you to think about this and respond when we come back. Is okay. Had this DEI rule that the president issued in executive order, had that been codified in statute, what does that mean as far as the court's ability to act and strike it down or uphold it? We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. We got law professor Christopher Green with us. We're coming right back.
Hey, this is Bob.
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Little CCR, that's in the house band set, by the way, there, I know. We're back with you. Law professor Christopher Green at Ole Miss is our guest. So before we went to break, Professor, what about that? Had this been law, passed through the standard process, through the Congress, signed into law by the president, codified and so forth, as opposed to being done through executive order, how does that change, if at all, the power of these federal judges to act on this policy?
Well, it would depend how Congress worded it. So back in '79, we had this big case about whether you can have employers adopting voluntary-ish affirmative action policies. Back then it was people that had in really recent memory engaged in really overt racial discrimination, and you're interpreting this language from the Civil Rights Act that on its face really seems like it's a completely categorical requirement of colorblindness. So if you look, really you would get the kind of situation you get in a lot of the Title VII cases. So the cases on transgender rights, rights of people in same-sex marriages, those sorts of things, under Title VII, you'd get a lot of those same kinds of questions coming up, depending on how exactly Congress worded it. So, so if they said, you can't have the current DEI programs or stuff like that, right? Then you'd have the judges have to figure out, what is stuff like that? So you think, okay, don't word it like that. The Congress would have to, you get these staffers, run around, pick out a thesaurus, come up with a word that's going to cover it. There's certain things you can do in a statute. If you said don't use any current materials. So you can just do a text, do a compare document. So hey, you're using the same paragraph and you're just literally replacing D with something and E with something. If that's all you're doing, so you could come up with tests like that. But it's a lot of subversion requires some judgment.
And my understanding is that's going on now. There's a lot of subverting going on where exactly what you're saying. Well, we're not calling it DEI, but still accomplishing the same goals of a DEI program. Harvard. So this intrigues me. You got the Trump administration saying, hey, you guys are looking too anti-American and you're allowing this anti-Semitism to exist in a rather profound fashion on your campus. We're pulling federal funding, significant federal funding, to this Ivy League school. Harvard's now suing. Sort that out for us.
Yeah. So again, it's this. The constitutional issue about whether if this had been done by Congress, that would be kind of the germaneness question. So is this an asymmetrical response? And partly one of the big questions is just what is the extent of the coddling or encouraging of anti-Semitism on campus? I got a friend who's there who has tweeted a lot of the stuff. I mean, it really has been pretty outrageous how they've taken their standard rules about protesting in certain places and haven't enforced them when they're being done by pro-Hamas folks. And there's particular people who are Jewish students on campus who have to go different places sometimes. There's a lot of details about individual incidents, but if you look at the materials that are getting have been used by these folks, it is some really, really odious stuff. And I mean, this globalize the Intifada stuff is I mean, that's basically saying we want to get Jews out of these spaces.
So I guess the question is, Professor,
that's really bad.
Kenna Harp, you mentioned earlier, Mississippi State Ole Miss, huge recipients of federal dollars. I mean, do they have a right to these dollars to the point that they can sue and say, hey, no, you can't deny us this money for any reason whatsoever? Can the federal government not sort of attach strings, I guess, to this money?
Yeah, so the federal government certainly can attach strings. And really, I mean, the interpretive question, the legal question is exactly what was that string? And is a string of this, how thick is the string? One way to think of it. Is this a kind of an asymmetric response? But if you look at what they were doing in the 50s with a lot of this money, a lot of it was for almost just like this kind of thing. I mean, there were quotas on Jewish students at a lot of these universities, and we said, hey, we're not gonna have racial discrimination. Kind of the 60s statutes putting ties on these. This is kind of close to the core of what some of these elite universities were required to do. Because I mean, the Jewish people as a whole are high achieving people who work really hard, and if you give them a fair fight in academic standards, they're gonna maybe not wipe the floor with everybody, but they're gonna have results that. We got to go.
Always appreciate you coming on, Professor. Really enjoyed it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Great to see you, Gerard. Take care.
We're coming right back after Fox News and Super Talk News.
Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday, y'all.
So our friend Representative Vince Mangold just sent a photo. Last year, the first annual softball contest between the Mississippi House of Representatives and the Alabama House, that was held out there in Pearl at Trustmark Park. Unfortunately, the Alabama boys took the trophy back to our neighbor to the east, but not this year, Rhino. You saw the photo that Representative Mangold sent. It is one of the Mississippi House with Speaker of the House Jason White, also Speaker Pro Tem Manley Barton in that photo, it looks like, and they won it. So they're coming back, the belt back to the SIP. Congratulations, appreciate you sending me that, Vince. That's good stuff, man. That's a neat event. I'm glad we're doing that. Really cool. So on the C Spire text line, we were talking about the $5,000 credit. It's actually a cash payment that's being considered, being proposed endorsed by the White House for those who have a child to try to improve the birth rate in the country. On the text line, well, your conversation about this $5,000 credit to have a baby, my goodness, that's just a drop in the bucket as far as expenses. I just don't see how that would benefit at all. I don't think it's a good idea. It would have to be someone who's very impulsive in their thinking and short-sighted, and my guess is that would be someone who wouldn't use the money to actually buy things for the child, but rather use it for niceties that they want to buy for themselves. I just think overall it's a bad idea. It has not worked in the two countries, Hungary and Australia, where it has been implemented. It did not boost the birth rate as expected. So it seems like that would be instructional. But I got another thing to talk about related to this. When do we ever just say, oh, we ain't got the money for that? When does that ever enter the picture? If they want it, they just spend it because they know there's no limit. It's not like it is here at the state level where, well, we ain't got the money for that. We have to balance the old budget. At the federal level, it's like that never even is part of the discussion. I'm just blown away by the prospect of spending money on something like that, new spending in this particular case. I don't think this is going to get through. I certainly hope it doesn't. I'm ready to get the current tax environment extended, made permanent, preferentially. Let's get that done and move forward. Man, extremely important. The whole dead-gum country's waiting on that. On the C Spire text line, most women want a man who makes six-figure incomes and looks like Fabio in his younger days, which is the reason why there are fewer births. Okay, could be. Let's see. Landfill Management says also Hungary, Russia, China, and other countries are paying couples. Well, they're trying. That's what we were just talking about, but it's not working. That's the point we were making there.
I forget which Scandinavian country it is. I think it's either Sweden or Finland, where every expecting mother receives a bassinet with a whole bunch of baby goodies and a very generous maternity period. The fathers get a very generous paternity period. They have all these different benefits for the first year of a child's life. And even they haven't seen a precipitous increase in birth rates.
It's almost as if these financial incentives really do not achieve their intended objectives. I think that's what we can conclude from that. 5K, this is Jason in Starkville, may cover the price of childbirth at the hospital with insurance. Yeah, I hear you. Let's see. I think a lot of the lack of the birth rate is due to people more wrapped up in their own lives and don't want the intrusion of children into their personal lives. Well, that's exactly right. And that's what all the polls show, is that people just don't want the responsibility. And honestly, you don't want those people having children. We got enough of a problem with that, do we not? But I guess more importantly, haven't we always sort of pointed to the 60s when all that sort of welfare was introduced as sending us down that road and putting us in the predicament we have today with so many relying on it? And last statistic I looked at, like 40% of the babies born in this country are covered by Medicaid, right? I think it's even higher in Mississippi, rather considerably. And what that means, the instruction from that is, this is a mother, it could be a household that includes two parents. They have a very low income. And the fact that they have a very low income doesn't necessarily mean that the child is sort of doomed in terms of evolving into a productive, successful adult, but it lessens the chances of it, and it usually is going to result in problems. I mean, there's most breakups of couples, they stem from financial problems.
And that was the reasoning given at the beginning of this slide down in the numbers of births, was the increase in divorce rates at the time. But we've seen since that period in the late 80s, early 90s, into the 2000s, the divorce rates declined.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Instead of people getting married and then getting divorced really quickly, they just quit getting married.
Just quit getting married. Some just cohabitate. No doubt about it. On the C Spire text line, Mike from Columbus talking about the Democrat plan to federalize elections. And honestly, Mike, before I read your text here, consider this. The only reason that didn't become law is because Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema wouldn't vote to end the filibuster. Because if they had voted to end the filibuster, that means this thing would have been law. And then the Republicans wouldn't be able to reverse it without ending the filibuster. Oh, man, what a complex web we weave. Mike says, so if they have their way, a foreign nation could fly millions of people in to sway an election. Well, that's what the Democrats wanted. That was the strategy. We're going to federalize elections to allow anybody to vote. By the way, we're going to open the borders up to allow anybody in. The combination of that's going to put us in power permanently. That was the plan. That was the strategy. I used to think that was maybe out there a little bit, but I finally came, after watching day after day, the borders being open, but more importantly, Biden and his administration saying, oh, the borders are closed. And you'd see this video while they were talking, saying that, of caravans crossing the border. Like, that don't look like close to me. Your eyes, right, will tell you that. It's not like I got to go read a bunch of complex laws. No, this is being captured live on video right now, except they never would go. The borders are Kamala Harris.
Biden barely knew where he was half the time, so even if he went, he still probably wouldn't see it.
Oh, man. Schoolhouse Rock, 3-ring circus, Amanda from Pike County. Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to happen. We've just kind of drifted away from that. Darren and Jackson's, the Germans have nothing to do with it. What do the Germans have to do with this Buford T. Justice? What are they talking about?
Germain.
Oh.
The Germain test.
Okay. Oh, got you. My apologies. I didn't get the humor there. The responsible adult is not going to bring a child into this world with all the uncertainty. Really? Well, when has there ever been absolute 100% certainty? I don't think that's a reason not to bring a child into the world. That's the worst thing we could do. So we're exacerbating the problems, the challenges. God told us that, right? When he said, you're going to have to go down to earth there. And you're going to have to prove that you're worthy of coming back. You're going to have problems. That's the one guarantee you can make. I couldn't be more optimistic, honestly, about our future. I've always been so. I just have a lot of faith in human beings and in this country. It's extremely resilient. We just figured out. I still think that's the case. These judges stopping Trump would not say a word if a Democrat president was doing the same thing. You could be right. It's hard to tell. Keith and Bates said, you wouldn't fall asleep in Professor Christopher Green's class. I completely agree. I mean, he's something. He knows his stuff, too. It's he is a bright spot at the university, at the law school, and that he and Professor Richlack may be the only two right-leaning professors on the faculty, Rhino. But you know this. That ain't unusual, is it? Whatsoever. In fact, that's two more than a lot of law schools have. We're coming right back with Caleb Sailors. That's Survivor on the All Hit Request line.
As we say good.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I got my mind set on you. I got my mind set on you. I got my mind set on you. Got my mind set on you. But it's gonna take money.
Welcome back. That would be one of the members of the Fab Four, George Harrison, bumping into this segment. It's now our pleasure to introduce Caleb Sailors, multimedia journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News.
It is incredible to think about the Beatles, though, Gerard, how they were incredible together, but then all of them had wonderful standalone careers, too. I mean, all of them have individual songs that are just as good as a lot of the works by the Beatles. I know that might be a controversial take, but that's my take.
Legendary talent.
No doubt.
Coming from the Fab Four.
And, of course, Rhino sends us in with one of George Harrison's greats.
Absolutely. All right, Caleb, give us a rundown. What's happening here in the state of Mississippi? We got redistricting. We got gubernatorial vetoes. We got the draft, NFL draft going on. What's up?
We got a lot of stuff going on in Mississippi this week, Gerard. One of the more recent things that happened, and this has been an ongoing ordeal. This dates back to a lawsuit that was filed by the NAACP in 2022 regarding redistricting. So the state board of election commissioners, which is comprised by Governor Tate Reeves, Attorney General Lynn Fitch, and Secretary of State Michael Watson, were charged with redrawing 10 Senate districts and 5 House districts. And now a majority of these have already been approved of redistricting. Now there's been some litigation and been, some scuffles here and there on, whether or not certain parties agree or disagree with the lines. But we've got it pretty much boiled down to where all these lines have been drawn except for 2 districts, 2 Senate districts in DeSoto County, District 2 and District 11. Well, the state recently offered 2 redistricting lines, and the NAACP came back and said no. They allege that it dilutes black voting power in Mississippi, that it kind of separates the black voting age population and doesn't give them fair representation in those districts. And so the state redrew the lines and submitted that recently, submitted it Tuesday, the redrawn lines. And so now the NAACP will have 7 days to review, see if these lines in Senate District 2 and 11 are conducive to what they're wanting. And a 3-judge panel, federal judge panel, can also review this as well, and to see if the lines are accurate, if they're right, if they're good, sufficient to dispel any concerns and any allegations that the state has prejudice in its drawing process. Now, I will say the lawmakers who are in charge with drawing these lines are not confident that the NAACP is going to accept them. In fact, the state wrote in its letter to the judges that they're concerned that the NAACP is wanting to ensure that a quote-unquote black Democrat is elected to power in the state Senate in those districts. And what the state is saying is they're going to guarantee an opportunity for black voters to make their voices heard in those districts. And both of those districts will be majority-minority districts, meaning there will be more non-white voters than white voters there. But they're not going to ensure the outcome of an election. Of course, that's a very prudent thing for Secretary of State Michael Watson because he oversees our elections. So if he's saying that he's going to guarantee a certain outcome, he'd pretty much be guilty of election interference.
Well, where's this headed? I mean, is this going to get into the courts and have to be sorted out there?
Well, it's already in the court system, and I think the judges. Personally, Gerard, my opinion on this is I think the judges are going to end up having to draw the lines themselves and set all the pre-election scheduling, like when the county clerk offices receive all the voter information, the new addresses, the new districts, and then when candidate qualifying period begins and all that. I believe the judges are going to end up having to sort all of that out. But there is a small chance that the NAACP may say, you know what, we're fine with these lines, though the state is not confident in that.
Okay. We'll see where that goes. Has there been any statements put out by the members of our legislature that are affected?
There was concerns earlier in the session about the lines that were initially drawn. I haven't seen any concerns espoused about the new lines that were drawn.
Okay.
And these lines were drawn on Tuesday, so I'm not sure if any of the senators in those areas or any of the legislators in those areas have voiced any concerns. From what I know, there haven't been any, but that could always change on a whimsical notice.
Yeah.
Gerard, one thing that I want to point out, and this is a different story, is that it's been over a month since 18 tornadoes pillaged 25 counties in our state. 25 counties, 18 tornadoes, killing 7 people, and no FEMA aid yet. We still haven't gotten any report back from the White House on whether our disaster declaration has been approved. And the governor issued this on April 1st. It takes a while to assess damage, to see how many homes were destroyed, how many people lost their lives, the total damage from buildings, businesses, etc. And so the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency said it did its due diligence. Director Stephen McCraney was confident that MEMA officials worked alongside FEMA officials at the federal level to ensure that all damage was reported, that their T's were crossed and I's were dotted, so that their report to the president was perfect, that there was no room for error, no room for any dispute, and so that way Mississippians could get much needed aid. Well, recently, the state of Arkansas, which had tornadoes and storms at the same time as us, was denied aid. So now there's a growing concern among those in Walthall County, which was hit the hardest in Mississippi, and other areas that we may be without FEMA assistance. Gerard, I recently spoke with volunteer firefighter Bobby McGinnis. He works down in Walthall County and Tylertown specifically, and he talked about the devastation. We talked on the phone, and he was just beside himself that it takes so long for the federal government to intervene, to come in and help people. And he lauded the efforts. He said that volunteers have been on the ground since day one, helping people, feeding them. He said, in fact, people down there are gaining weight from all the food they've been getting and helping them. But the problem is the lack of shelter. You can give people all the food, all the clothes, all the assistance you want, but that doesn't build them a house. That doesn't build them a shelter.
I got you.
And so now what people are needing is housing, and there's a lack of that down there.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll see where that goes. I know we had MEMA director Mike McCraney in the other day. Stephen McCraney, pardon me. Mac. Yeah. Was in the other day, and he seemed to feel like that it's imminent. It's coming.
That's what MEMA officials are hoping. It's not a good sign that Arkansas was denied, but maybe there were some discrepancies with their filing and everything, and maybe Mississippi did some things that Arkansas didn't. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to believe with the governor of Arkansas's relationship, Sarah Huckabee Sanders' relationship with the Trump administration, why they would be denied. So it's kind of, I don't know. But we'll see. I mean, we don't know. We haven't heard anything from FEMA, and I know the governor's office has been kind of mum on this as well. They're awaiting this, and so we'll see. But if anything happens, we'll be the first to report it at SuperTalk.fm.
Tell us about this veto that the the governor just applied to a measure that got to his desk that would have reformed our con laws a bit. Certificate of need.
I'm going to have an in-depth story on this soon at supertalk.fm, but I will tell you that certificate of need reform has been at the forefront of the governor's agenda as governor. I mean, in fact, he wants to abolish certificate of need laws altogether. Well.
Yeah. Nothing new,
right?
Yeah.
So this bill would reform it. It would double the capital expenditure for clinical operations, non-clinical operations, and medical equipment, and which is huge, right? So that means that these hospitals could spend more money on these services without having to go to the government as a liaison saying you're allowed to do this, this, and this. You have to go through this vendor, right? So it would ease the burden on hospitals, give them more autonomy. But there was an amendment added by Public Health and Welfare Committee Chairman Hob Bryan on the Senate side that would put a kind of protectionist CON on a hospital in Jackson. Now, I'm working to get specific details. You'll see that in my story soon. I can't divulge all of that right at this moment. But the governor said if we are going to have any sort of certificate of need laws in Mississippi, they must be applied fairly and equally and not show favoritism for hospitals, and so he vetoed it. He did say, though, the governor said if the legislature is willing to remove this one specific amendment that requires this one specific CON, then he'd sign the bill happily. So there's a chance with the upcoming special session. Now, we don't have the date for the special session, but we know it's coming because we got to get a budget passed. That CON reform very well could happen in Mississippi if both sides in the House and Senate can agree to get rid of this amendment.
Be interesting to see if that makes its way into the session, the special session.
I would be shocked if it didn't make its way. I would be shocked if the governor didn't put that on his agenda just to put these lawmakers on the record. I think a lot of what the special session is going to do, kind of piggybacking off of this conversation, is I think the governor is going to try to put a lot, specifically the Senate, because I know he's had more qualms with the Senate than the House in recent days, but put the Senate on the hot seat and see where lawmakers actually stand on a lot of his agenda.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, we got a break right here. You can come back and tell us about the draft.
Yes, sir.
And what happened there. Caleb Sailors, multimedia journalist, Super Talk Mississippi News, live in the Element Wealth studio.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. A little Steely Dan.
Do it again.
That's it, man. That would be Donald Fagen there, right? We're back with you in the Element Well studio. We're visiting with Caleb Sailors. He's a multimedia journalist from SuperTalk Mississippi News. All right, so we talked about the governor's veto of this CON legislation, and I know a lot of folks are probably upset about the fact that Senator Hobb Bryan, he a Democrat from Amory, been there for a long time.
Yep.
And he chairs a fairly powerful committee from a legislative perspective, that being public health in the Senate. His counterpart in the House, of course, Representative Sam Creekmore. And I think it's clear that the senator does not support the repeal or the reform in any significant way of the certificate of need laws. And by the way, what we got passed here just kind of scratched the surface.
It really waters it down a little bit. But Yeah, it doesn't change it. And that's what the governor was pointing to, that he wants con laws to be removed altogether. But he even said before the session,
he's been steadfast on that for a while.
But he'd take what's given to him, like taxes. If the taxes weren't fully eliminated but cut, he'd take what's given to him. Ironically, Senator Hobb Bryan was also adamantly against the tax cuts as well, just noting the governor's agenda and where the senator stands on that. But it appears that he's not in favor of con reform. Gerard, you got me on. I have a side note to mention that has nothing to do with the legislative session, but you mentioned that we were let in with "Do It Again" by Steely Dan. I saw Steely Dan in concert last year, Gerard. They opened.
Wow.
Oh, it was cool. They opened for the Eagles, so best concert I've ever been to. But Donald Fagen did not perform "Do It Again." I was actually a little bit, I wouldn't say disappointed. The concert was amazing, but how do you not perform "Do It Again"?
I don't know.
That's like their most popular
song.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, they played "Reeling in the Years" and
Deacon Blues.
No, Deacon Blues.
They didn't play that.
All the other songs from that album from Asia were played. Josie and "Home at Last" and "Peg" and "Black Cow." All those. No Deacon Blues. That's my favorite Steely Dan song of all time.
Yeah, Deacon Blues.
Oh, yeah. But
they call Alabama the Crimson Tide.
Call me Deacon Blues.
Call me Deacon Blues.
Call me Deacon Blues. That's a great song. For those who don't know that, y'all got to go back in the archives and listen to that one. It's a great song.
It is a good song.
But yeah, so on the CON, though, I don't know. I would be shocked if it's not brought up in the special session. I'd be shocked because the governor outlined a lot of things he wants discussed in a special session whenever he calls it. Is still, we don't know yet, but he talked about education reform, specifically school choice, which I know has been a huge topic in Mississippi, especially with Texas passing school choice bill recently.
I haven't gotten to that yet, but I will. Yeah, so that's a possibility. So let's talk about a little sports here, the draft.
Huge night for Ole Miss athletics last night. We had number 16 pick overall in the first round, Walter Nolan, defensive tackle for Ole Miss. And look, guys, I covered the Rebels all season. In football, I was in the press box every home game and a couple of the road games as well. And I haven't seen a defensive lineman just impact the game like Walter Nolan did for Ole Miss.
Total beast.
For Ole Miss. I have not since Robert Kimdichie. And guess what? Walter Nolan is the first-round draft pick on the defensive line for Ole Miss since Robert Kimdichie was selected by the Arizona Cardinals in 2016. Well, the Cardinals were like, okay, this first Ole Miss guy didn't work out for us, but we're going to bank on this one and Walter Nolan. So the Cardinals select Walter Nolan last night, and I mean, he draws double teams, he disrupts the interior, he has the ability to shed double teams like nobody I've ever seen. He can track down ball carriers. He can get to the quarterback. I mean, Walter Nolan does literally everything right for a defensive tackle. And now there's a couple of downsides with him: his hand size, the way he gets off the tackle. There's some things that scouts were concerned about, but all of those could be remedied with good coaching. And he's going to be paired with Calais Campbell on the defensive line. And Gerard, for those unfamiliar, Calais Campbell was with the Ravens for a long time, and he's been one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL for a very long time, and now he's with the Cardinals. Good. And that interior, woo-hoo-hoo. Good luck running the ball up the gut on the Cardinals. And then we had another draft pick. First time since 2016 we had multiple. Ole Miss had multiple first-round draft picks, and Jackson Dart, quarterback. The New York Giants had their early draft pick. Well, they traded to get into the first round again, got the Houston Texans pick, and picked up Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. everybody knows this now that's kept up with Ole Miss football. Jackson Dart has kind of been the main storyline around, other than Matt Corral early in Lane Kiffin's tenure. Jackson Dart has been one of the key focal points in Lane Kiffin's time at Ole Miss. Dart developed into one of the best passers in the country, shattered just about every record at Ole Miss that were held by, Eli Manning, Bo Wallace, Chad Kelly, even Matt Corral. And he led the Rebels to the first 11-win season in program history ever. And just been a sensational signal caller for the Rebels, and just his maturation as a quarterback from year one when he came from USC, kind of struggled in the passing game, relied on the running game, to last year where minimized interceptions, threw a lot of touchdowns, had a lot of yards per completion. It just was well-rounded as a quarterback. And now he'll be the Ole Miss's first-round quarterback selected since Eli Manning. And now I saw people posting on social media, Gerard, that the Giants did it again. They drafted another Ole Miss quarterback. But let's go back to 2004. The Giants did not draft Eli Manning. The San Diego Chargers drafted Eli Manning with the first pick of the NFL draft, which was a huge historic occasion for Ole Miss. But Eli Manning's agent, and none other than his father, Archie Manning, were like, son, you ain't playing for the Chargers. You're not. So it worked out where Eli went to the Giants. And I will say that the Chargers did not get a bad end of the bargain. They ended up with Phillip Rivers, who ended up being all
really
pro.
Good, yeah.
Oh, no doubt. But we saw how it worked out for Eli, though. 2-time Super Bowl MVP. I guess the owner of Tom Brady, even though Tom Brady's the most successful quarterback of all time, but his Achilles heel was always Eli Manning. And so now Jackson Dart will get to, kind of continue the Ole Miss legacy in the Big Apple. He has big shoes to fill. Eli was very successful with the Giants, but Dart, he's obviously not expected to start day one. The Giants already have 2 quarterbacks ahead of him, and Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Whether or not one of those is retained or not, we'll see. But Dart, this will give him an opportunity to kind of sit back, learn the offense, get a year under his belt where he's not forced to be the starter, forced to be a program resurrector like if the Saints had drafted him or the Steelers had drafted him, another franchise that needs a quarterback now that's kind of in limbo with other quarterbacks. This will give Dart a chance to learn the offense, kind of learn the NFL game, and then potentially, step into that starting role.
Any other Mississippi players?
Nobody
been
got
drafted yet?
Not yet, but we got the second round that starts tonight at 6:00, and then the third round will go tonight too. And you can look for guys like Prince Lou Mamuelin, the edge rusher from Ole Miss, who was exceptional. Trey Harris, wide receiver from Ole Miss, could possibly go tonight. Trey Amos, defensive back from Ole Miss. I thought he should have gotten picked by the Buffalo Bills last night with that 30th selection. The Bills went with Hairston, a defensive back from Kentucky, but expect Trey Amos for sure to be an early second-round guy. A lot of NFL franchises need defensive backs, and he's one of the best in the country.
Well, that ought to be kind of neat if that comes through. So lots of talent here.
Lots of talent
in the state of Mississippi.
And you can keep up. We got a draft tracker at SuperTalk.fm. I'm posting them, keeping the public updated with the guys that get picked. And so even guys that are from Mississippi that played at other colleges, we will get them on the website as well. So you'll see. It's a huge occasion every year, Gerard. Mississippi, I believe, is number 3 in the country in producing NFL athletes per capita. And we've got, just look at our state, Gerard. Look at the athletes we've produced. Walter Payton, Jerry Rice,
Brett
Favre, Eli Manning, Archie Manning.
Go down the list, yeah.
Right. I had to think for a second because all the names. And then current guys like Chris Jones, who's the best defensive lineman in the NFL, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf. It's just Mississippi is so storied in its NFL history and now present. And now we've got a new wave, a new generation of guys that can continue to build on the state's legacy in the NFL.
Man, really incredible. So how long is this draft going to endure?
Through Sunday.
Through Sunday. How many rounds will we get through today?
7, 2 today, and it's 7 total.
7 total, 2 today.
2 today. 3 and 4. 2 and 3 today.
But only the first round yesterday.
They only do round 1 on night 1.
On the first day. And that's because there's such production with every pick, right?
And then when you get to the later rounds, it's like, all right, now, come on, guys. Yeah. Buffalo will select this guy who's going to be on the practice squad. And but with the first round, you have all the pageantry surrounding it.
Yeah.
And of course, you had 2 former athletes that played here in the capital city. Travis Hunter was selected the number 2 pick overall for the Jaguars. Shedeur Sanders, son of Deion Sanders, hasn't been picked yet, but he'll go probably today in the second round.
Appreciate the rundown there, Caleb. Caleb Sailors, multimedia journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News. All right, that was good.
Thanks, Gerard.
Man. Yep, we're coming right back, folks, in the Element Wealth studio. Stay with us.
Now it's time for the Bible Verse of the Day, brought to you by J&R Restaurant Group and Outback Steakhouse in Flowood. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. John 1, verses 2 and 3. This has been the Bible Verse of the Day, brought to you by J&R Restaurant Group and Outback Steakhouse in Flowood. Online at jrrestaurantgroup.com. That's jrrestaurantgroup.com.
Hello, my name is John Merrill, the owner of Amada Senior Care. We're your local trusted advisor for senior home care. We provide experienced caregivers for your loved ones so they can remain in their home. Just like you would care for your loved ones, our employees provide assistance with their personal care needs. As your trusted senior advisor, I can help your family navigate the long-term care insurance process. Just call me, John Merrill with Amada Senior Care, for your free in-home consultation. 601-864-3752.
Be beautiful, Mississippi. I'm Dr. Christine Bridges with Keep Jackson Beautiful. Let's keep our city beautiful, too. Join the Greatest American Cleanup now this April, and with your help, we can keep Jackson beautiful. Follow us on Facebook.
Get ready, Brandon. Jubilee Days is back May 1st through the 3rd with a jam-packed celebration for the whole family. Enjoy a midway carnival with rides, games, and classic treats. Get moving at the Jubilee Juke 10K Run 3K Walk. And shop till you drop at the vendor market. Plus, don't miss 2 incredible nights of live music with Gavin Adcock and Allison Krause at the Brandon Amphitheater. Visit brandonms.org for more information. Brandon Jubilee Days, May 1st through the 3rd. Don't miss it.
Need to move heavy loads with complete confidence? Trust the experts at Southeastern Services to move your equipment. Reliable, safe, and on-time deliveries every time. Southeastern Services, your trusted partner in heavy haul transportation. Visit us online. Give us a call at 601-292-9932.
This is the Midday Agri-Market Report. At the direction of U.S. Ag Secretary Brooks Rollins, all state agencies are to enhance their identity and immigration verification practices when determining eligibility for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. This guidance is one of the many steps toward fulfilling President Trump's executive order, which directs the USDA and other federal agencies to enhance the eligibility verification system to the maximum extent possible to ensure the taxpayer-funded and benefits exclude any ineligible aliens. Secretary Rollins went on to say President Trump has made it clear that American taxpayers will no longer subsidize illegal aliens. Back in February, Secretary Rollins directed the USDA and FNS to review the administration of SNAP benefits to make necessary changes to align with the executive order. I'm Dixon Williams, and this is SuperTalk Mississippi Agri-News Network.
Help DEA keep our community safe and healthy by participating in National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day, Saturday, April 26th. Take action right in your own home by cleaning out your medicine cabinet of unneeded medications. Keep them safe, clean them out, take them back. Find a collection site near you at DEATakeback.com. Do your part to lower overdose deaths and prevent prescription drug misuse before it starts. That's DEATakeback.com.
Steel deals are happening now. From instant savings on select tools to free battery offers on some of our most popular battery tool sets. You can enjoy great deals and do it all with Steel. Shop online or in store at your local Steel dealer. Offer valid for a limited time only at participating dealers while supplies last.
Find out what's happening across your state. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Well studio. Final segment, hour 2, and then another hour of Middays in store for you today. By the way, today on In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar, you'll hear part 2 of an interview with a communications expert and motivational speaker, Randy Harrington. In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar is presented by Superior Catfish. Remember, there's catfish, then there is Superior Catfish. It's U.S. farm-raised catfish with homegrown flavor. Ask for it by name at your favorite store or restaurant. Go to superiorcatfish.com for more info. The Sports Talk team is dodging the weather a bit, I think, up there today, Rhino. They're in Oxford for the annual Double-Decker Festival. It's one of the biggest events in North Mississippi, and you don't want to miss it. That's the Sports Talk boys. They're up in Oxford. I noted that our content director, Alex Payton, our engineer, Houston McDavid, they were all loaded up and headed up to Oxford to get it all set up for Sports Talk. That's coming your way at 3 p.m. today. So, just got the news that happened yesterday. Minnesota, they voted against an amendment to keep males out of female sports. Is it just safe to say the Democrats hate women?
Sure seems that way.
It sure does. I mean, they absolutely go to the ends of the earth, and I'm serious about that. No pun intended there, to allow
dudes in dresses
to beat up on girls in sports, because that's what happens. Let's be honest. What kind of person takes satisfaction in winning when you are a dude in a dress and you're winning against girls in athletic competition? How do you receive any just gratification or sense of accomplishment from that?
In fairness, the same argument could be said for anyone that cheats in order to win.
Well, I would make the same assertion. What sense of accomplishment is that?
There does seem to be a fair amount of people that are willing to cheat in order to win that don't see anything wrong with it.
I don't see how that works.
Because of the immediate gratification.
I guess so. And do you not think that that's also a factor in the low birth rate? Maybe. You're so accustomed to doing whatever the heck you want and having this immediate gratification, which the left has been telling us. And I do think this may be a factor as well, the narrative coming from the left, that instant, immediate gratification you're entitled to. And what's the terminology they use? Delayed gratification, I think, right?
Yeah, that's racist.
That's racist. We got to decolonize that. That's what they say. That's insane. So, hard work, they say, is racist. Striving towards success, working as a team, all that stuff. Those are elements of white supremacy. Well, maybe that's why we're so awash in mediocrity. Because excellence is deemed as white supremacy. I mean, how stupid is that? Keep leaning into that crap, you Democrats. Man, oh man. You know, traveling to El Salvador, they're all about standing up for the rights of this illegal terrorist thug gang member. Incredible. But yet, right in your own home states, where you've got American citizens falling prey, victim to heinous acts of crime by those that Joe Biden just let across, telling us while he was doing that, the border is closed. Jeez. How do they live with themselves on that? Don't answer that. I'm afraid.
They have no shame.
I'm afraid what the answer is. So you sent me this video. I got to look at that in the break. You said it was quite prescient.
Yeah, we were talking about the falling birth rate, and it reminded me of a movie that came out not long after I graduated high school. Produced, I believe, written and directed by Mike Judge, which, if that name sounds familiar, you might be a Gen Xer that watched Beavis and Butthead, or was a fan of the movie Office Space, or perhaps even King of the Hill. Rather funny dude. He made a movie in 2006 called Idiocracy, and at the very beginning of the film, you have an affluent couple that is talking to the camera about how they're looking at all their options and weighing what they need to do to be responsible to bring a child into this world. And they're contrasting it to Cleavon, a dyed-in-the-wool redneck that has umpteen million kids and all of the familial strife and struggles that comes with that. And it's oddly prophetic.
Unbelievable. I got to take a look at it. Yeah,
we can't play it on the air because it's
I got you.
Got some
That's
language.
Where we are. Fox News Super Talk News is next, and then hour 3 of Middays. Stay with us.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply, and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays. We are once again live in the Element Wealth studio. We thank you so much for joining us on this
Friday, y'all.
Heck dang, yeah. Will you get this rain out of here so we can have some enjoyable weather for the weekend?
Well, if the weatherman is to be believed, according to weather.com, it should be out of the Magnolia State by tonight.
Okay.
There is a chance for some scattered showers tomorrow for different parts of the state, but it doesn't look all that high.
It looks better, though.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Speaking of the draft, how about Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers? I think it's safe to say he humiliated himself with a video of him throwing a football. He should have just stayed home and abstained from that. It's kind of like Barack Obama throwing the first pitch out.
Or at least had a friend to throw the ball with.
That's right.
Not sit there and have this awkward, hey, Tony, go long. And then it's Tony catching the pass.
He don't know how to throw no football, does he? Oh, my gosh. That was embarrassing. He's getting roasted on it as well. He should.
Now, it would not have been nearly as off-putting if he had, say, an NFL player from his state or a former NFL player from his state throw him the ball and he catches the ball and then makes a little statement about good luck to everybody in the draft or something like that. That would have been pretty much boilerplate political social media engagement.
Sure. I mean, just maybe the camera focused on the player throwing the ball and then switching to him catching it and then saying his piece.
It's just the weird. There's a thing in entertainment called the willing suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to buy what they're selling you on whatever screen you're watching.
Yeah.
And seeing someone of his age and athleticism throwing a pass to himself beggars belief. You cannot suspend the disbelief, so it just gets into that weird, cringy territory of, all right, this is just odd.
And that's a good way to put it. It was quite cringe-worthy, no doubt. Do these people not see themselves for who they are? Do you think they have any idea? You really look silly doing this, man. Evidently not. Yeah. Well, some of these other elected officials across this country that look silly. How about Lauren McLean? Who's she? The rather woke Democrat mayor of Boise, Idaho. I'm shocked at Boise, Idaho. I mean, you're in the middle of red country there. All 400,000 people in Idaho. It's not a very populous state. Maybe more than that. Wyoming, I think, is 600,000, something like that. What's Idaho?
Wyoming's just shy of 600,000. Idaho's at 2 million.
Oh, okay. Idaho, I guess, has got some bigger cities than Wyoming does. Okay, 2 million. But how dang big is that place? I mean, it's bigger than the state of Mississippi, right?
Boise, the metro population is 770,000.
Okay. Well, that explains why there's 2 million in the state. And that also probably, if you think about it, explains why it's blue, why it's Democrat. The city of Boise, I'm talking about. Well, Lauren McLean, she's the mayor. She decided she wasn't going to adhere and comply with Idaho state law, which prohibits the flying of a pride flag on flagpoles on public facilities. So, which would include, by the way, military, state, local facilities, including the city hall. But not, Lauren there. She had to hoist the pride flag. And she's dang proud of it. I want you to know, Rhino. And she took a photo of herself. And I know you may be surprised to learn that she was a delegate to the DNC this past year. So there's a photo of her, Boise, by the way, beautiful setting. And she's standing in front of the big Idaho sign that's going to be on the floor. This is before she went to the DNC. It may have been after, because she's got her lanyard and her badges and all that stuff. But you know what else she has on? It's obligatory. A mask. She's outside with a stupid mask on with the city of Idaho, Boise, Idaho in the background. And, of course, she was happy to hoist. And by the way, it's the new pride flag with 18,000 different colors on it for all the one each per sexual orientation. Oh, my gosh. What happened in this country where we're so dang obsessed with this sex crap that we just have to insert it in every corner of society, the worst of that being in preschool? I still can't wrap my head around that. And we have to go to the Supreme Court to say, please, Supreme Court, let me opt my kids out of this ridiculous instruction concerning sex to kindergartners. Good gosh, people, you're sick. But there she is, in all her splendor and glory there, Lauren McLean. And then we got another situation. I'm looking at the video. Judge Hannah Dugan. She is being rushed to a car outside the Milwaukee Federal Courthouse. That's because she was arrested by the FBI for helping an illegal alien evade arrest. This is a judge. How in the world can you trust a judge to be fair and impartial, but more importantly, blind? Isn't that how it's supposed to work? Blind justice? Hey, we apply the law here equally, equitably. But most importantly, we uphold the law. Don't you swear an oath to that before you become a judge? She forgot that detail, I guess. It's just every day. It's more craziness like this. And the Democrats wonder why they got 22% approval rating.
It's because their allegiance to the tiny minority of crazy people that are exceedingly loud far outweighs their allegiance to rationality, normalcy, or even the country as a whole.
And please add to that, the law is written and adopted and promulgated and sanctioned. Unbelievable. But think about this. In the last day, we've had a judge who's blocked Trump from defunding sanctuary cities. defunding schools that push and have fully adopted DEI, the requirement to prove you're a citizen to vote in a federal election. And another one, of course, has told the president, you got to return an illegal alien gang member from El Salvador. This political activism will destroy this country if it's not stopped in its tracks. And I pray that it is. Is it just me, Rhino? And I don't want to be judgmental here, but I guess we're an opinion show, so I'm going to offer my opinion. Do all these judges just kind of have that look of being a loser? Don't they look like losers? I mean, like, you couldn't figure out anything else, and you would think being a judge, that's honorable work. It's supposed to be. But these people look like, I really can't do anything else. I'm just going to be a judge. No disrespect to the many fine judges we have at all levels in this country. No disrespect to them. And I think most of those would say, yeah, I'm not really proud of these people being part of my profession. They just look like losers. And because it's like, I'm mad at the world because I'm a loser, therefore, I'm going to use whatever power I have to exact some sort of retribution. In this case, I'm going to help an illegal alien evade arrest. It's just incredible. I'm going to tell that president, you got to send that money to those sanctuary cities. Once again, proving that they prioritize what they deem to be the rights and privileges of people who are not citizens of this country over people who are. Oh, you're a citizen who pays taxes? I'm sorry, your kindergartner has to be subjected to radical gender ideology. Oh, you're an illegal here that steals from American citizens, and even worse, you harm or kill them? Step right up into the sanctuary city. We got you covered. Nobody's going to get you. That's how insane this is. Did I miss anything there? Gosh, dog, man. This is just... But seeing these photos of these judges, it's just immediately loser, loser, loser. And I feel like that given the rulings you've made. They're loser rulings that put anything but this country and its principles and its laws in the forefront. And that's just, it's insane and it's disgusting. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio. A little Fleetwood Mac.
Hey, this is Bob. And
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We don't have no plastic LA friends. Ain't on the edge of no popular trend. Ain't never seen the inside of that magazine GQ. We don't care if you're a lawyer or Texas old man, or some waitress busting ass in some liquor stand. If you got soul, we hang out with people just like you. My hair's turning white, my neck's always been red, my collar's still blue. We've always been here, just trying to sing truth to you. Guess you could say we've always been.
Welcome back, everyone. That's a little Leonard Skinner on the all-hit request line. Thanks for that, Rhino. So, George Santos, you remember him, of course, the disgraced United States rep from New York. He just got 7 years in prison. And he has been seen outside of the courtroom there. He lied, of course, about his past.
About dang near everything.
Yeah, he bilked his donors. He got 7 years.
It's easier to list the things he told the truth on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. His occupation, his experience, his net worth. I think just about everything. But
whether or not he was a South American hooker at one point in time.
That's right.
Just weird stuff.
He's been seen crying, sobbing outside the courtroom after learning his fate. He's going to jail for 7 years. Jeez. You knew something was shaky about that guy from day one. Okay, so the other development with respect to the courtroom, Luigi Mangione. He, of course, the murderer of the CEO of United Healthcare. And looks like that he has pleaded not guilty this afternoon to federal charges. He, of course, assassinated UHC CEO Brian Thompson, that in December. Not guilty. Okay, well, give him the harshest treatment possible in that case.
Well, I mean, he's up for the death penalty, so.
Well, that's fine with me, honestly. This guy's a maggot. There ain't no doubt. You got to do something that deters this assassination culture we have. When I see these polls that say, oh, yeah, half the country thinks it'd be acceptable and justifiable to murder the president and Elon Musk, you may disagree with him. Heck, I disagree with him sometimes. But the idea that, okay, I'm going to take care of my disagreement, I'm going to mitigate that by just taking them off the planet. I can't even comprehend that. But that's the way the left thinks. It's mafia-like. They're in the way. I got to eradicate them by any means possible. Unbelievable. All right, with some good news, Google, they had a blowout. They had a double beat. Announced earnings after the bell yesterday. It's good news for the big search engine giant. Of course, you got the GOP, the DOJ trying to bust them up. I don't agree with that. This is insane to think that they've got some sort of illegal hold on the search engine industry. I disagree with that completely. But yet, the DOJ is coming after them on that. But
it just goes to show the inefficiency of the federal government.
It's because they don't get it.
Because you could have made the argument for Google being the web search engine maybe 5 to 10 years ago.
I would agree.
There wasn't a real strong competition from anybody that was really gaining any ground.
Agree.
And that very well could be when that ball started rolling in the federal government. Oh, we need to look at these people. Well, we have to form a committee to then have some meetings to talk about it, to then have a report that we give to the members, that then we can set up a second committee to read the report to the members so that they understand the report, so we can have a third committee meeting and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
Typical nonsense you have in D.C. But at this point in time,
yeah,
Google is not where you go to find quick or accurate search results.
We're way past that point. There's no doubt. There was a time. There's no doubt about that. But we're way past that point now. And there's absolutely nothing precluding anybody else from launching their own search engine. It's because it's obviously web-based. It's not like there's some sort of lock they've got. And it works on all manners of operating systems. So it's not like, again, oh, yeah, we got a lock on that because it's all integrated. Remember the big suit against Microsoft because they started including their browser in the operating system. And that was deemed to be unfair.
The browser that literally no one used.
Exactly.
It was
terrible. But nonetheless, there were lawsuits over that. They were giving it away.
And it also goes to show the disconnect between young people or younger generations and those serving in D.C. Because the vast majority of young people look at Google like they look at Facebook. That's for old people.
No doubt about it.
They'd rather just go to whatever AI they use, ask it a question, and get much better results than they would ever get trying to search Google.
Well, let's be honest. You could almost describe original early-day search engines as kind of precursors to AI a little bit. Because what you're doing is using all kinds of complicated algorithms to rapidly search the entire dang internet. And they've built all, you know how it works, all kinds of cache and files and tables and stuff. So that
come a long way from crawlers.
That's exactly right. Which is what they did. They went and collected that information, assembled that, and put it in a format that was easy for the engine to inquire and then return a result. And we've intensified and amplified that dramatically now with AI. But the same concept still applies. You've got to build this huge repository of information that is optimized for the AI tool to mine and to return results. So you're absolutely right. That's a lot more efficient. And I kind of like the built-in AI into the Google search engine. It's pretty effective, pretty cool.
To a certain extent.
Sometimes I look at it and say, no, that doesn't sound right. And you got to realize it's just out finding data and presenting that, sorting that, siphoning it out, scrubbing it, so forth. But
and if anybody thinks I'm being hypocritical because I call the computer a Google box, I say that in jest.
Yeah, good point. But they had $90 billion of revenue in their first quarter, and they topped estimates by about $1 billion, and had a $2.81 EPS, earnings per share. It made $34 billion of net income. That's pretty strong. So they're getting on up there in the Apple net income territory, if you think about it. That's amazing. $34 billion of income in a quarter on $90 billion of sales. That's north of 30% bottom line. So they beat the top and the bottom, the revenue and the net income. But this is what I was going to get to. Oh, Chuck Schumer, he's probably hyperventilating right now because you know what else that they've announced? A stock buyback. You know, Schumer hates those stock buybacks.
Oh, the humanity.
So, $70 billion stock buyback program. That will, of course, increase. It will also increase their cash dividend. But the stock buyback, Schumer just gets apoplectic about that, doesn't he? I mean, he goes nuclear. Stock buybacks, and so did Biden. It's their dang cash. They can do whatever the hell they want to with it. They just can't stand that. Liz Warren and all that ilk. But yes, $70 billion. So they had a great quarter that was largely made possible by their shareholder investors, and they're rewarding them. What the heck's wrong with that? Man.
Well, it's wrong to the Democrats because they don't have a way to take any of that money away from them.
That's exactly what it is.
To enrich themselves and others.
They want you, they being those Democrats, they want the likes of Google and others just send that on up to Washington because we know better what to do with that money. Meanwhile, Apple, big-time smartphone maker, of course, and maker of lots of other personal compute devices, they say they're moving their assembly for the phones that are shipped into this country from China to India. But you were talking earlier, I got a little nervous about that because India and neighboring Pakistan are doing some nuclear saber rattling.
Yeah, it's getting a little spicy over there in Kashmir.
Yeah, we can talk about that on the other side of the break with David Bowie. Changes pumping us out of this segment. We are in the Element Well Studios, and we're coming back for half an hour of Middays.
Ooh, look out, you rock and rollers. Changes. Face the strain. Changes. Pretty soon now you're gonna get older. Time may change me, but I can't trace time. I said that time may change me, but I can't trace time.
Gerard Gibert. Going beyond the headlines, breaking down the stories that matter to Mississippi. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Okay, so the president says that they're talking to China and Japan, and the Dow, which was down earlier in the session as much as 200 points, is in the green, up 25. Your funny money, Rhino, by the way, is up to 95K. It's made a little rebound from its low a couple of weeks ago. The S&P also up. The NASDAQ up a nice 189. So might we see what? Would this be the third day in a row where we close in the green? I'm telling you, I think we see one trade deal done, and it's off to the races. That and this tax bill, so important. I'm so pleased to see now the Dow's turned negative again, but not by much. So enthused to see the president back off and Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, say, yeah, we're not going to add a new $1 million tax bracket. Although I did hear Senator Crapo, where is he? North Carolina, South Carolina? I get it confused sometimes. I did hear him this morning in an interview say that he could actually be at least open to talking about this new.
Crapo's from Idaho.
Idaho, thank you. Okay. I know somewhere up in the northern part there, across that line in the middle of the country.
You know he had a rough childhood with that name.
Oh, yeah, Crapo. He's actually really good. And I can't recall exactly what his position is in the U.S. Senate, but he's heavily involved in economic and tax policy. I don't think he's head of like finance or any of that.
He's a ranking member of Senate Finance.
Okay,
he's the chair of Senate Banking.
There you go. Okay, which means he works.
He was the chair of Senate Banking. He's now the chair of Senate Finance.
All right, so he is the guy. All right, so I was on the right track there. But he kind of concerned me when he said, "Oh yeah, well we could talk about that," but you know, you try to infer from what these guys say, because as you said, they're so dang afraid about saying anything definitive. However, Congressman Byron Donalds from Florida, who is now a candidate for governor and a big Trump supporter and who's been endorsed by the president as the governor, he flat out came out yesterday and said, no, we're not raising taxes. We're not doing it. So did Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. We're not raising taxes on anybody, I think specifically is what he said. So I was so pleased to hear that. That's really a good deal. We got to talk about the state of Texas. And this has been a long time coming, but it looks like it's a reality now. That is school choice, universal school choice. We're not talking about just the entry-level aspect or rung of the ladder of school choice that just allows public-to-public school transfer. No, universal school choice, meaning everyone in the state who's got a child of the K through 12 age for school will receive a $10,000 voucher to use as they see fit to fund the education environment that they think's in the best interest of educating their child, whether it's homeschool, private school, charter school, transfer to another public school. It gets started next year, this school year, right? I think it's
that'll make them the 16th
state. That's right.
With universal school choice.
Not just limited school choice, which we tried to get through here and it got killed. So we're lagging. We're now being surrounded not only by our neighboring states, which have universal school choice, that border the state of Mississippi. You know, Florida has it to our east, has for some time. Now, the biggest Republican state, the state of Texas, and it's been a long time coming. Man, they all fought it hard. They've got kind of the same problem that we do here in Mississippi with sort of an old guard, protectionist establishment, Republican legislature. But you remember when Governor Abbott tried to get this done a couple of years ago, and he then vowed, I'm going to find some primary candidates to make some changes here to get this through the legislature. That's how strongly I feel about this. So, interesting that it got through. It's $1 billion over a 2-year period of public funding towards education savings account that they can use for private school tuition, other school-related expenses like textbooks, transportation, etc. This just passed. Just literally happened yesterday. So I got to share with you, Rhino. I decided to just announce this and promote this on my Twitter account. No big deal. Just essentially just the facts. You know, this thing passed 86-61 in the House. That happened a couple of weeks ago. They have a small Senate. So think about that. There are 31 senators in the House, in the Senate in Texas for a population that's, what, Rhino, 30 million in Texas? I know California, 40.
Yeah, 31 million.
All right, so 30 million. So they have 1 per million. That's the way it works out. Senator. So we have 52 here for 3 million. Just thought that was an interesting contrast for what it's worth. So they just got bigger Senate districts, meaning their senators are more powerful. But it passed 19-12. It was not without a fight. There's a rep, young guy, who came from the education community. And this guy's all over social media the last couple of months, blasting Governor Greg Abbott's voucher scam. That's the way he termed it every single time. Just all kinds of fear-mongering and, honestly, inaccurate information. And I follow this guy because I was just curious. What is the other side saying? So this thing passes. So, of course, there's a couple of folks that posted comments to my Twitter account where this post exists. And one of them, of course, is someone I believe you've banned off our text line here for grossly inappropriate behavior. I don't think they're banned. Okay.
I just told them to fly a kite in a thunderstorm.
Okay. So you didn't block them on the text line, right? In a thunderstorm.
Their opinions are worth less than what Porch Cat left in the litter box this morning. I'll put it that way.
Oh, that gives new meaning to my favorite term used by Colonel Sherman T. Potter, horse hockey. This person says, thus public education will cease to exist in Texas. He said, school choice, he goes on to say, is nothing but conservative code for redirecting taxpayer dollars intended for public education to private, parochial, for-profit institutions, and with, you'll love this, the secondary goal of indoctrinating students. No, you nut. That's what they're trying to get the hell away from. That's why there's parents up in Washington at the Supreme Court right now, because you and your ilk seek to indoctrinate our children with your radical gender ideology CRT garbage. That's exactly why they need choice, because the entire establishment education world just sucks up to all that crap. Heavily involved in it. Many of the teachers, sadly, have shown their true colors, have they not? And it's disgusting to think these are the people teaching your kids. So the parents say, enough. I didn't pay for this with my tax money. But you nutcases that are in charge are using public money to fund these non-education, more indoctrination environments. It's just... Is there any more gaslighting than that? That's pretty much the epitome of it right there.
I go back to what I said earlier. The most vocal crazy people on the planet are damaged and deranged.
Unbelievable. So I just glanced up at the text line. Once again, something we should be celebrating. Thomas in Greenwood is raining on, right? What does he say there?
Are they cutting spending?
Oh my gosh, that's just unbelievable. Again, I don't know that there's ever been any positive remarks about any political or policy development from our friend Thomas. This is a time to celebrate, Thomas. That's what the point is here. I'm hoping that this puts a little more pressure, should put a lot, on our government, our state government here, to get this done in the state of Mississippi. So what are you going to say here, state of Mississippi? Well, Texas, they got it wrong. Florida got it wrong. Tennessee got it wrong. Louisiana got it wrong. Alabama got it wrong. Iowa got it wrong. I mean, is that where we are? Arkansas got it wrong. That's where we are in Mississippi. Is that not essentially saying those guys are wrong, we're right? The 16 states that have done this, and there's more coming. There's more coming, I promise you. I guess that means Donald Trump got it wrong too, right? Because he's a big advocate for this. Final segment is up next.
At Keegan
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're back with you, final segment in the Element Well studio. Now the Dow's turned negative again, so it could be one of those volatile days. I think the markets are just trying to tune in to everything the president's saying about negotiating these trade deals. So, okay, apology to Thomas. He wasn't actually talking about Texas with the text. He was asking if, with respect to the one big beautiful bill, if the U.S. Congress is going to be cutting spending at the federal level. And that's after I talked about the increasing taxes on the wealthy, and Senator Crapo, who said, yeah, he kind of indicated he could be open to it. But then he started talking about how that would hurt small businesses that have an income over $1 million, and he doesn't want to do that. So kind of conflicting statements about it. Of course, it's a U.S. senator, right? That's pretty much what you get. I'm glad that they aren't raising taxes, Thomas says, on the wealthy, but until they cut spending, tax cuts are basically irresponsible and will only add to the debt and the deficit. But no one is willing to call out our legislators who are championing extending the tax cuts and raising the debt ceiling. Thomas, that's wrong. How many times have I called that out? Thousands. But I've also explained the reality of that. Until we get to a point where we don't have to borrow any money, which means that we don't spend any more than we take in, we have to raise the debt ceiling or we close the government down. And you can say, okay, we'll let it close down so that we can fix that problem. Well, fixing that problem means you got to cut $2.3 trillion out of the budget. And you can't do that without cutting Social Security and Medicare. And you'd have people falling into the streets. That's just a reality.
Yeah, the temperature online on social media has gotten to a point where there are some that are suggesting we are in the beginnings of a cold civil war.
I've heard that too.
And while I think that's a bit overblown, I think that's a bit hyperbolic, I do sincerely believe that there are two things that would get people in the streets and committing violence that you normally wouldn't see in the streets committing violence. One would be cutting Medicare or Social Security, and the other would be any implementation of a draft to fight in a foreign war.
That's probably a good point.
Those are the two topics that I think you would see genuine bloodshed in the streets due to discontent.
I would agree with you. I would say the exception to the final cause there of a draft would be if we were attacked. If there was a significant, serious attack, and we needed to conscript to defend.
But I wouldn't really consider that a foreign war. That'd be a war of defense.
Okay, got you. Yeah, if it's to draft to go send people over to help out somebody else, I agree. Yeah, that would be terrible. Didn't we do that once before? It didn't work out too well back in the Vietnam era. I mean, the country was in chaos, devolved into chaos, deeply divided. It was a sad time, honestly. I look at 1968, kind of the pivotal year that will always remain in my memory. I was around then. It's just a sad time for our country.
To say that those two things would spark off something violent, now to put it in context, like the left loves to do, neither one of those things are likely.
Agree.
At all.
Agree. So the president supports raising the debt ceiling. In fact, he's asked to raise it sufficient to cover our borrowing for 2 years, which indicates to me that even with the spending cuts being contemplated, which are, they'll always tell you it's $1.5 trillion. It sounds like a lot, except that's over 10 years. It's $150 billion a year in a budget of $7 trillion. So it's a small amount of money. It's just, there's just no political will to address the drivers of the deficit. And contrary to popular belief, it's not all the stuff that DOJ is finding. I'm all for that. That's crazy nutcase spending that we need to eliminate. But what's on autopilot that is more than offsetting the cuts that DOJ has found is Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Now, I've suggested on this program maybe we ought to think about phasing out federal dollars in the Medicaid program and just letting states create their own program if they see fit to do so. And let them deal with the vulnerable populations in their individual states from a health care insurance perspective. In Mississippi, we receive just under $8 billion a year from the federal government to run our Medicaid program. That's bigger than our general fund budget. So I know that's kind of a tough pill to swallow, but if you wanted to cut a big chunk of federal spending, there's $620 billion right there in the Medicaid program. Now you're talking real money. Real money when you're dealing with a $7 trillion budget and a $2.3 trillion deficit. But we are out of time here today. We appreciate you for joining us. What a week it has been. We'll be back with you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.